Chapter 10, God of Agriculture. Give us this day our daily bread, Jesus. The Roman goddess Ceres was prayed to and sacrificed to for an abundant harvest of grains. She has 12 lesser gods that assist her in the work of planting. Her name means nourishment, and it is where the word cereal comes from. Her story parallels that of the Greek goddess Demeter. As the myth goes, Demeter is the goddess over the growth of all living vegetation, and the mother of Persephone. One day, Hades, the god of the underworld, captured Persephone and brought her down to his abode. Now, it was decreed that anyone who ate of the food of the underworld would not leave, and Persephone ate 4 or 6 pomegranate seeds. Demeter was so upset about her daughter not being able to leave the underworld that she stopped all plants from growing while her daughter was away. To end the famine, Zeus sent Hermes to retrieve Persephone from Hades, and to appease the law, she had to return to Hades for 4 or 6 months of the year. When she was gone, all plant life died, but on her return each spring, the plants would come back to life. The myth of Demeter is an ancient myth that was the basis for the drama acted out by initiates of the Eleusinian mystery school over 2,500 years ago in Greece. As in all mystery schools, the secret truth that was taught was that the soul lives beyond the grave. Just as the plants are resurrected each year, so too was Persephone raised from the land of the dead. The big secret is that life does not die, but continues in new forms. The Dying God. Like Persephone's descent to hell and back, Norse myth tells of the god Balder, who is killed by mistletoe, but will be brought back from the underworld after the end times battle. Though there are many categories of gods other than the ones discussed in this work, I have deemed the god of agriculture worthy of our investigation because of this deity's prominence among the pantheons of the world, and his place among the Anunnaki, wherein he was called Dumuzid, faithful, true son. Dumuzid was both a shepherd and the god of edible vegetation. His lover is Inanna, but she had become trapped in the underworld. When she got out, she made Dumuzid take her place in the underworld. After going to hell in place of his beloved, Dumuzid was brought back to life. In remembrance of the death of Dumuzid, the women of Mesopotamia would mourn for 6 days beginning on the summer solstice. The Babylonians had the same story, only Dumuzid was called Tamuzi, and Inanna was called Ishtar. The Hebrew month Tammuz marks this same time of year. The Syriac calendar has a festival called Tauz in the month of Tammuz, where grains are not ground up. It is said that the Levant god Adonis is another form of this same character. In one version of the story, Dumuzid is assigned to spend 6 months on the earth and the other 6 months in the underworld. The myth of Tammuzid is one of, if not the oldest version of this story of a life, death, rebirth god. As with the other myths dealt with in this book, the death, rebirth god shows up all across the earth and time. But this is a good place to bring up an important issue. For most of the modern world, the idea of a God that dies and returns to life brings to mind images of Jesus the Christ. But for some, the fact that similar versions of this story were told before Christ, with different names, proves that the story of Jesus is a forgery from older myths. For intellectual Christians, however, a Savior and his atonement were part of the original plan known by Adam and Noah, which knowledge was handed down from generation to generation. Like a game of telephone, the story changed over time. Thus, the Hebrew sacrifices were types of what would come. And if the Egyptians had a similar story, it is also because a remnant of the prophecy came down through the line of Ham. A third point of view is that it is not the story of an old god or a new god, but simply an imaginative way to talk about the cycles of the seasons coming and going. For an exhaustive look at this idea, read The Golden Bow by James Frazer. As usual, I find truth in all of the above. Other saviors have existed. It was prophesied that Jesus would come, and these real events are connected to natural phenomena that bear witness of the truth. The greater truth is that all will live again. Like Dumuzid and Jesus, the Egyptian god Osiris is considered a shepherd. He carries the crook and flail as his working tools. Another synchronicity between these three is the eating of emblematic bread that symbolizes the body of the god. The people of ancient Egypt would plant wheat grains that symbolized the dead Osiris entering the grave. The sprouts were the rebirth, and the new grains were made into Osiris-shaped loaves that were consumed by those celebrating the festival. It was believed that the consumption of the bread would transform an individual into the god. They became Osiris, or took on his name. More on this topic is discussed in the grain and blood chapters in the ritual part of this work. God of wine. A more specific type of agriculture god is the god of the vine. Again, the mind goes to thoughts of Jesus, turning water into wine, passing a cup of wine around as a symbol of his blood, and saying that he will drink the fruit of the vine again in the kingdom of heaven. Of course, Jesus is a death-resurrection god, and so is the famous Greek god of wine Dionysus, or Bacchus as the Romans called him. The story of Jesus contains many teachings and circumstances that are not found in the stories of Dionysus and Bacchus, but some of the synchronicities are uncanny. All three are said to have been born of an earthly mother and the King of Heaven. Each institutes a ritual sacrament of wine that is consumed by his worshippers, who believe that by doing so the god becomes a part of them. Each is called a liberator, and each rose back to life after dying. All the gods seem to have a thing for alcohol, but there tends to be one that is particularly associated with it. A hymn to Ninkasi is a recipe for beer found on clay tablets from Sumer. Ninkasi was a daughter of Enki and the patron goddess of brewing. Inari is an old Japanese goddess of a rice wine called sake. Like Dionysus and Bacchus, she is also associated with agriculture and fertility. In Africa, Ogun is a god of rum making. In Norse myth, Agir is a Jotun god that brews ale and mead for other gods. Akon is a Mayan god who makes a beverage called balche out of honey. The Aztecs had Tepoztecatl, who was the god of palque, fermented agave sap, aka tequila, and of drunkenness and fertility. Soma is a Hindu name of a deity as well as a sacred intoxicating beverage. The offering placed on the altar to these gods is alcohol. Soma is also the name for the moon god. God, goddess of agriculture. India, Surya, god of the sun. Mitra and Ravi are a couple of his many names. He is celebrated every year on the holy day of harvest. He and his wife, Suranyu, are the parents of the underworld gods Yama and Yima and the Ashvins twins. Persia, Mithra, aka Havare Kashaita. Like Surya, Mitra is a god of the harvest and a solar deity. He is also a god of cattle. Mithra is connected to the goddess Ashi, who is his charioteer. Ashi has been linked to another Persian goddess called Aradevi Surya Anahita. Sumeria, the Muzid, agriculture god of grains and sheep. He spends the winters in the underworld and the summers with the gods. The Mesopotamian goddess of grain is called Ashnan. Babylon, Tammuz, the Babylonian version of Dumuzid. Canaan, Dagon, god of fertile lands and harvests. Arabia, Basamum. His name indicates that he is a god of plants. Judea, Adonis. His name in Hebrew, Adonai, means Lord. The Greeks and Romans paired him with Aphrodite as their version of Dumuzid and Inanna. He spends part of the year in the underworld and the other with the goddess of love. As for Judeo-Christian Islamic angels, Michael is written of in apocryphal writings as the one that taught humans how to garden. He is also a solar deity. Turkey Hittites. Telepinu, exalted one, of the thunder god Teshub. He is the patron god of farming and crops. When he leaves, vegetation dies, but when he returns, the crops grow again. Slavic. Jarilo, son of the thunder god Perun. He dies every fall and is reborn every spring. He is the god of grains and vegetation. The festival of harvest and abundance on the summer solstice celebrates the divine union between Jarilo and his wife Morana, the underworld goddess of death, who he lives with in the winter. Greece, Demeter, goddess of the harvest and fertile earth. Although ancient Greeks had Adonis, the male agriculture god from the Levant, Demeter is the most well-known Greek deity of vegetation. When her daughter Persephone goes to the underworld in the fall, she causes plant life to die, and when she comes back in the spring, Demeter causes the grains to grow again. Rome, Ceres, the Roman equivalent of Demeter. We get the English word cereal from this goddess of grain. Etruscan, Cels, the Etruscan precursor of Ceres. The Etruscans also had Adonis, and Voltumna, goddess of vegetation and the underworld. Celtic, Irish, Aine, goddess of crops, fertility, and the summer sun. Welsh, Amathon, god of agriculture and son of the goddess Dawn. Scottish, Agnes, son of the thunder god Dagda. In Ireland and Wales, he bears more resemblance to Hercules, but in Scotland it is said that he lives in the underworld in the winter and returns with Brigid, the goddess of love, when the plants flower in the spring. Norse, Gefjan, goddess of plowing and fertility. Balder is the dying god that goes to the underworld and then returns when the fields bear fruit. He is also a god of light and summer, making him a solar deity. His wife is Nana, a lunar deity. Egypt, Neper, Osiris, both being agriculture gods. Neper was combined with Osiris and called He Who Lives After Dying. The death and resurrection of Osiris was used as a symbol of the yearly harvest. Like Dumuzi, he is also a shepherd. Osiris and Isis can be compared to Dumuzi and Inanna, or Tammuz and Ishtar. Nigeria, Yoruba, Oko, god of farming and the annual harvest. Igbo, Ahia Njoku, the goddess that causes vegetation to grow. Chile, Mapuche, Tentenvilu, god of vegetation and fertile earth. Also a protector of animals, he is the son of Antu, the father of the gods. Peru, Inca, Mama Sara, Gray's mother, goddess of grains. Yucatan, Maya, Unapu, aka Kawil, and Hun Ishim, is the god of grains, maize. Mexico, Aztec, Centeotl and Chicomecoatl are the god and goddess of grains and harvest. North America, Kokopelli, agriculture and fertility god of some southwestern tribes. Arctic Circle, Inuit, Caribou Mother, goddess that supplies food on the earth. China, Taoism, Shenyang, god of farming. He taught mortals how to plow the earth and grow food. He also taught them the medicinal properties of plants. Japan, Shinto, Toyoke, goddess of agriculture. Her father, Wakumusubi, was also an agriculture deity and a son of the head gods Izanami and Izanagi. Australia, Kunapipi, goddess that gives life to plants and animals. New Zealand, Maori, Rongo, the agriculture god that cultivated crops. He is one of the brothers of the thunder god Tauhiri Matea. Hawaii, Lono, the Hawaiian equivalent of Rongo. Along with agriculture, he is associated with music and times of peace.